Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, and the Chicago Bears head to Levi Stadium to take on Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, and the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday Night Football. Both teams are 11-4, and the number one seed in the playoffs is potentially at stake here. San Francisco, if they win their last two, they get the one seed in the first round bye. For the Bears, if they beat the Niners, they beat the Lions in Week 18, and Seattle loses one of their last two versus Carolina on the road or against these 49ers on the road, the one seed goes to Chicago. These two clinched playoff spots this past week, and there's a lot of history here. So we're going to have a bit of fun with this video. We're going to talk a bit about the X's and O's, then we're going to go into some history, a couple of previous matchups, then we're going to go in talking about players, and then we're going to go back in history talking about these two teams, because there's so much more than just this matchup. There's two of the most iconic franchises in the league, and they've had a rich history together playing each other in the postseason. Over the last 10 years, they've squared off a bunch of times, and they almost played each other in the playoffs a few times with a couple of memorable matchups there. We'll dive into all of that here at Blitz with Blender. If you're new here, my name is Josh Blender, making NFL college content weekly, getting you set and ready for these matchups. We're going to have a bunch of fun, so let's get started with this one. Both teams coming off of primetime wins. Let's start with San Francisco. Their win against the Colts was plain and simple, emphatic on the offensive side of the football. We're going to get into that one, but quickly here we got to pivot because that was a great performance offensively. The Colts simply could not stop them. Excellent day for Brock Purdy. First Niner quarterback to throw for 5 touchdowns, thanks to that nugget from Lisa Salters since Joe Montana did it, the Hall of Famer. For Chicago, they're coming off of their most significant win in definitely 7 years since they beat the Rams in prime time. And that was a statement to the NFL. But this regular season win is the biggest of this millennium. We got to be honest about it. Beating the Packers at home, prime time, essentially stamping their ticket to the playoffs. They wound up clinching the spot. Of all people, Aaron Rodgers clinches the spot for Chicago by beating the Lions. Who would have drawn that up at the beginning of the season? But that's how this thing has gone. They fought to the end. Through 55 minutes, it was sloppy. There were uncharacteristic penalties. There was unsportsmanlike. There was unnecessary roughness. The first play of the game, you've got a Chicago Bear jumping on top of the pile and a 15 yards that gives the Packers the ball at midfield. From the start of it, you could feel this sense of energy in that building. It was palpable. You could touch it. You could feel how excited Soldier Field was. I think Levi Stadium's going to bring an environment just like that. This will be one of the games of the year in the league. There's few paths where we could see a blowout in this one. It just feels like these two teams are too evenly matched. The quarterback play is so solid on both sides. Purdy's your guy that goes and gets the completions. Caleb Williams, he extends plays. He gets out of the pocket and scrambles for the first down. And he makes a fadeaway jump shot. Steph Curry back of the end zone to undrafted rookie Jade Walker. Shades of his walk-off touchdown game winner against the Chiefs in the preseason. A lot of people watching that game that weren't Bears fans didn't know Jade Walker, but he had a moment like that in the preseason. So this is going to be a whole lot of stakes on this one. The energy is going to be high from the get-go, but that felt like a playoff game that Chicago and Green Bay played in. They very well could be playing again in the postseason. Before we fully dive in here, let's go back to what was going to be a Bears-Niner game in the playoffs. In 2013, Chicago played Green Bay. That 4th and 8, fateful play, Rodgers hits Cobb into the end zone. The Packers wound up losing to Colin Kaepernick and the Niners at Lambeau Field the following week. In Chicago, there was a whole bunch of snow that weekend, and they had about 6 inches. It got down to frigid temperatures. That was the polar vortex year for you Chicagoans out there. They would have played San Francisco. They would have been coming into those elements. Instead, they went up north to Green Bay. That was a playoff matchup that we did not get to watch, and that was about 12 years ago. In this instance, the game isn't bigger for either team. Both teams are looking to win the division. It is possible that Chicago could clinch the NFC North before this game, so have the division wrapped up. And let's say the Philadelphia Eagles lose, and let's say Green Bay loses, Chicago could also have the number 2 seed in the conference wrapped up if both of those teams, like Philly loses at Buffalo, Green Bay loses to the Ravens, 2 seed is Chicago's. But they're going to be looking for more than that. That first round bye with the health of both these teams is critical. That's a free win into the divisional round. So we took a look at history, looking at what this one means for both squads, and now let's dive in. So Brock Purdy, phenomenal effort on the road against an Indy offense that surprised many individuals. Phillip Rivers, great at the line of scrimmage, but Purdy was near perfect on the day. I was very impressed with his decisiveness, getting the football out on time, 25 of 34, 300, 5 touchdowns. The interception and towards the end, that was just a high throw. Threw it a little bit too high, and a simple overthrow. The middle of the field is an area where Purdy typically layers the ball a bit more. Caleb, in his natural style and tendencies, he fires that ball in there. On the final possession, I want to say it was 1st and 10 from the 30, fires it into DJ Moore to get the ball down to the 12-yard line with a fastball. He's got that fastball to another echelon. There's no doubting Caleb Williams and Brock Purdy and their athleticism profile, the arm talent, those edges go to Caleb. This is a former number 1 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, versus a guy that set a bunch of records at Iowa State, Brock Purdy, the last pick of the NFL draft. That's a very fun storyline, especially for those of you that are big college fans like myself and looking at these guys coming out of school. And now Purdy's played in a Super Bowl. He played in an NFC Championship game against Philly. We would have loved to see how that one played out. And Caleb Williams, and with these 5 game-winning drives in the last 2 minutes, and then this game-tying drive in the last 2 minutes, has played himself into the opportunity to be playing massive football games. These stretches of games like Philly, the game against Pittsburgh was a big one at Soldier Field, the Packers, and now San Francisco. You're setting it up to really be playing games in playoff atmospheres. San Francisco, their ability to match up with teams this season has been impressive, and I really haven't let people slide with their talk like, oh, they haven't played anyone. Remember, they beat Seattle, and I've got the Seattle Seahawks as my number 1 team in the league. I think if you don't have the Seahawks as your number 1 team in the league, you're making a mistake probably. The way they looked in the first matchup, had the Rams, and a little slow operation, missed the game-winning 60-yarder, but the Niners beat the Rams in overtime. The second matchup, a very slow start to that game, but still they put up 26 points. They beat a good team in Carolina. There's a decent amount of wins against low-quality opponents. Sure, Chicago, same story there. But understand this, it's tough to win in the NFL, and 11 wins, that's not a fluke. Winning 11 games in the National Football League is a statement that you're playing to the level of the competition no matter who they are, and you can show up. The way Chicago dominated Cleveland at home, look what Cleveland did. They're in a 3-point game with the Buffalo Bills in the last couple of minutes down to the wire. For a comparison like that one, I know the Buffalo Bills are well respected. It's been a roller coaster type year. I'm not going to hear it when a team like San Francisco beat the Carolina Panthers handedly 20-9, and then that's a team that the Los Angeles Rams lost to, and we're going to say that the Rams are far superior to San Francisco. That could be. It's possible. Certainly they're healthier overall as a team once they get Adams back. But look, there's losses on schedules for teams that are considered Super Bowl contenders, and we're hearing that these two aren't. I'm here to tell you both of these two teams are Super Bowl contenders, and this game has a lot of merit. It's got a lot of meaning for that path. The paths towards the Super Bowl are a heck of a lot simpler and easier for the team winning this game, and that's drawn out because that first round bye, that is really big. For Chicago, imagine it just is the road through Soldier Field. For the Niners, imagine if the road through the Super Bowl, the chance to host the Super Bowl, at Levi Stadium, something that the Rams did at SoFi the year before that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did at Raymond James. Both of those teams won those Super Bowls. So San Francisco would have the opportunity to do exactly that. Shades of a number of years ago that had that game, I want to say, at Seattle, down to the final play, number one seed on the line, and it's down to the wire, that game. I want to say week 17 in Seattle, San Francisco. That game comes down to the final play. Let's draw also back to a piece of history for a fun one. You've got the San Francisco 49ers in 2020, a down year, lots of injuries. Garoppolo, I believe, got hurt. They beat the Arizona Cardinals, which helped the Bears wind up getting into the postseason. Bears fans are rooting for San Francisco to beat Arizona. Arizona lost the next week to the Rams, and Chicago lost to Green Bay, but they beat Jacksonville and got them into the postseason. In 2017, the Robbie Gould San Francisco 49er kicked 5 field goals to beat Chicago at Soldier Field in a wild one. There was a Tariq Cohen punt return for a touchdown for people that remember that game. If we want to keep doing this game, 2015, the Bears came off of a Thanksgiving win on the road at Lambeau, Brett Favre retirement night, and Robbie Gould missed a 36-yard game-winning field goal to win that game. And then I want to say it was Blaine Gabbert, the starting quarterback for San Francisco, throws a 70-yard touchdown bomb to beat the Bears in overtime. We're going to go over a couple of pieces of history. I know this matchup incredibly well. I've watched, I want to say, 10, 12 of them in my lifetime, a lot. I would wager you probably have seen a lot of these games. And if you're not a Bears or a Niner fan, I'm glad you're here because there's a lot of history within these teams and a lot of excellent matchups. Let's go to the Chicago offensive side because this is a team that hasn't had the starts that you would like. And I mean on that front, like going down the field and getting points. Against Philadelphia, right? They go down the field and they get stuffed on 4th down. Against the Packers, really slow start to that game. Against Cleveland, they go 3 and out on the first possession. Ball was at around the 45. Against the Packers, 4th and 1. They have an interesting play call from Ben Johnson. He gets cute with it. The ball was moving down the field, and they wind up having the snap from Drew Dalman over the head of Kyle Monangai. For San Francisco and the way that they've started, and certainly the way that they played against the Bears last year in 2024 and just coming out hot and winning that game and not a ton riding on that. You know, San Francisco's season, they weren't playing for a whole lot and still looked excellent, like really clean in that one. Chicago's got to start quick because the Niners, they have been starting fast. Against the Carolina Panthers, right, that game on Monday night, I want to say the opening drive, there was an interception in the end zone, or they scored, and then the second possession, up 7-0 pick, something like that. But this team against Indy, they didn't punt. They haven't punted in the month of December yet. The way that they moved the ball against Tennessee, against Cleveland, and a really good defense, they moved the ball exceptionally well. So this offense is clicking on all cylinders. For the Bears, they're going to have to utilize a lot of play action. And a benefit for Chicago is moving the pocket around, using the the legs and the athleticism that Caleb possesses to get him off his spot. And because there's no Nick Bosa on the edge, and he hasn't been there this year for San Francisco, and Chicago just faced no Micah Parsons, they're getting a break with two teams with two of the best edge players in the NFL that aren't on the field in these matchups that you are going into the year with a really big concern and question mark for. So that's a break for the Bears any way that you want to draw it up. They've had their share of injuries, but they got to come out and get a field goal, get a touchdown in that first quarter. You can't be going down 7 points to San Francisco in the rhythm and how fast this team starts and when they get Christian McCaffrey going. And then I got to bring this up, and I can't believe I'm doing so almost 15 minutes into this video. George Kittle, his ankle injury, that's a massive concern. Is he fully healthy for this game? I'd imagine the toughness of him and the character that he has, being a darn warrior, grew up a Chicago Bears fan, Big Ten and Midwestern Iowa type guy. A lot of fans of George Kittle in the Chicago fan base, not this week, but in general. I know Bears fans really love George Kittle and what he embodies as an NFL player. He's got a lot of respect, especially respect from my side. Him in this game, is he available? And if he is, what level of George Kittle is there? Because him and McCaffrey, that's where the offense really runs through. For the Bears, and talking about their injuries, no Luther Burden, no Odunze. That was very important for the first 55 minutes of gameplay. Caleb had, I believe the number was 148 passing yards, and that was before the drive to get the field goal, and then the drive where they go down, it was actually, I believe, a little bit, it was in the low hundreds. The drive to get the field goal, the drive all the way down to score the game-tying touchdown, and then the bomb in overtime. Well over, I think 70% of his yards came on those final 3 possessions. In crunch time, Caleb Williams is one of the best in football. He's proven that. The level of play from Brock Purdy is known to not be as quite as good when he isn't playing with the lead, when the score's tighter or they're playing from behind, and the style of play doesn't favor the Niners where they have that balance running the ball. If this game is close, Chicago has a great shot to win, and that's where they'll feel comfortable. So the Niners, it's almost like you got to get that hot start, stop Chicago a couple of times. If you can turn the ball over and be aggressive on the early downs to build yourself something like a 10-point lead in this first half, because it's going to be Chicago with a ton of momentum. They're going to feel great about a one-score game, tie game under 5 minutes, because that's the way that they've lived. They've lived in deep, cold, murky water this entire season. They've been comfortable and familiar with that throughout the year, and that's exactly where you don't want this game to go for San Francisco. It's at home. You want to control the football towards the end of it, keep the ball in your hands, and keep it out of the hands of Caleb Williams. So no Burden, no Odunze. That hurt Chicago, but then Caleb put the cape on and he turned into Superman on the final 3 possessions. Probably the best throw in Chicago Bears history. I can remember a lot of Jay Cutler throws throughout his career that were unbelievable. But this one in particular, I think Caleb had one for to beat the Vikings, in an overtime game. Maybe 2009, I want to say, something like that. He had some big-time throws. There's no doubt about it. Probably the most memorable is 2010 divisional round. Greg Olsen up the seam for a touchdown, and they play that when Greg does Chicago games. But this throw to beat Green Bay, for Ben Johnson get his first one over the Packers, to then eventually it clinches your playoff spot with that throw. Best throw in Bears history. The confidence is soaring from Caleb. The one against the Eagles to win it, rolling to his left in that one. This is excellent quarterback play. You could make an argument that heading into this part of the year, Caleb and Brock are both top 10 quarterbacks, despite what maybe the numbers say, because Brock missed a lot of time throughout this season. These are top 10 quarterbacks with the way that they've played in big moments. San Francisco riding that 5-game win streak. Chicago with what they've done with 6 game-winning drives on the year. It's a historical. It feels like a team that's close to destiny and what they're trying to pull off. It's an echelon above the magic they had in 2006 with the comebacks, like a Monday night win that they were able to pull off. The Bears are who we thought they were on that Monday night game, or 2018 with all those takeaways. This team has better offense than 2006, better than that 2010 NFC Championship game team, especially teams like 11, 12, 13, some good teams with good defenses in 11, 12, and in 2013 an atrocious defense but good offense. 2018, great defense, led the league in takeaways. This team does that, but this offense is superior to what they had with those weapons. Burden, Odunze, DJ Moore are better than any of their wide receivers likely on that Robinson, Anthony Miller, Josh Bellamy roster that they had from that standpoint. So let's go into that. We'll talk more about the history of a couple of these games, but the weapon standpoint, it definitely is a decisive edge for Chicago with the depth that they have. If critical if Burden and Odunze are available. Without them, it feels like this could be a similar game plan to what San Francisco has. Look, get Caleb rolling out of the pocket, under center 65% of the time. A lot of quick stuff, getting the ball out of his hands. Colston Loveland, 7-8 targets, getting the ball to the tight ends, running the football 55% of the time, biding your time for the deep shot over the top. Chicago does not take a lot of shots downfield. They haven't the entire season. Ben Johnson has said he doesn't believe in 50-50 balls. He believes in scheming guys open for his quarterback to make plays. For Kyle Shanahan, it's a lot of the same. These offenses are quite similar in the sense of it's that tree of under center, heavy reliance on running the ball, play action. They're like a mirror images of themselves in what their true identity is. There's the advantage for Caleb's athleticism, and then there's the advantage for Brock Purdy hitting the gimmies and his accuracy. The second and 4 from like the 6, Caleb has Zacchaeus open out in the flat for a touchdown to tie the game. He misses it, 3rd and 4. He also doesn't see Zacchaeus on an angle route out of the backfield. You could go look up that highlight on 3rd and 4. Then the next play, Jade Walker with a great throw. I thought he was going to miss him, to be honest. This past week for Brock Purdy, on the other hand, he had like one poor throw the entire day, and that was his last throw of the game on the interception. Aside from that, that was stellar, superb play. And this is against a good Colts defense. That's a top 10 defense for Indianapolis. A funny side note is there was no DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner, for Bears fans that don't know, he was a first-round guy that San Francisco winds up getting that pick for. Really good stalwart player, a part of that team that went to the Super Bowl and lost the lead to the Chiefs. Great player on the interior. The first game against the Chiefs, I got to make that critical part because I think he wasn't on that team in the second loss to Kansas City, the one in overtime. But he wasn't there for Indy, and they had the ability to run the ball throughout the day. There was no pressure coming up the interior right in Brock's face where the guards are. They had a good push, like Latu. I think JT Tuimoloau for Indy got a good push off the edge. But what did that allow Brock to do? He was able to step up a little bit into that pocket and deliver the football by just having a clean pocket in front of him. The Bears, even a bit more key than getting pressure from Booker or from Montez Sweat on the edge, Gervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, even Andrew Billings, they need a push up front. Remember, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, both these guys are about 6'1", not that 6'4", 6'5" frame with the high release where the ball comes that way over. If you can get the push up the middle and your hands up, you can make things exceptionally difficult on these quarterbacks that aren't those massive stature guys. That's a part of this one where Chicago is been protecting Caleb exceptionally well. Caleb, I believe, did not get sacked by the Packers in either matchup. Not in the first one or the second one. You can go ahead and try and check me on that. They had a face mask late in that fourth quarter. It was going to be like 4th and 20. Wound up being a first down. It led to the field goal. San Francisco's only got 16 sacks on the season. That is the last in the NFL by a margin. I think it's 18 now. It's last in the NFL by a margin of 6. Chicago, not great getting after the quarterback. They will be addressing the defensive line play. You're likely going to see 3 of their first 4 picks put towards defense, 2 of them no doubt being on the defensive line, bolstering those trenches. They did it on the offensive line. They got some help this offseason, getting guys like Dayo Odengbo. He gets hurt with the injury. Shamar Turner, the rookie second rounder, he tears his ACL early in the year, banged up in the offseason. So both those guys hurt, so they got to rely a little bit more heavily on Booker, on Grady Jarrett, the free agent off-season signing from Atlanta, who has been up and down this year, a good veteran presence, a little bit better stopping the run than getting after the quarterback, so he's a key player for this one. Statistically, Chicago and San Francisco, they stack up very similarly on offense. These are two clear top 10 offenses. The Bears scored 26 points a game, that's 10th. San Francisco scores 26.1 points a game, that's 9th. Yards a game, the Bears are 5th, 372. The Niners are 9th, 354 yards a game. So they move the football, they're efficient. The red zone offense has got to be better on the Bears side of things. If I'm the Niners, I know that the style of defense Robert Saleh in four-man pressures, and he didn't blitz Phillip Rivers the entire day. Just be like, all right, we're going to make Phillip Rivers beat us. We're going to make sure Jonathan Taylor doesn't beat us in getting into that box. And you can't throw the football downfield, so we can stay aggressive with our coverage. Against Chicago and their lack of aggressiveness to take those shots over the top, I think we see a game plan where San Francisco does something similar to what they've done the entire year, which is like we can play a good amount of man coverage. We can pressure the quarterback in Caleb a little bit more, and where he has struggled at times this year. A lot of young quarterbacks do before they really understand how to adjust and to make those calls at the line. So it's the right pass protection for him. There was a really important miss up front on a blitz where Caleb winds up having intentional grounding. Could have cost the Bears a game because they had to kick a 51-yard field goal from Santos. He winds up knocking that one through, but that was a critical error from Caleb and up front and almost cost them an opportunity at the end. Time of possession, Chicago, 5th in the NFL, 31-43 a game. The Niners still very good, 31-17, 7th in the NFL. Turnover differential is a huge difference. The Bears are plus 21. This mark is one of the best ever in the history of the league, like in this millennium. Plus 21 is an unheard of margin. The Niners are minus 4. That's 20th in the NFL. So that's to say San Francisco hasn't benefited from the heapings of takeaways, and they haven't turned it over a ton this year. They have coughed it up at times. Whereas Chicago, their quarterback doesn't throw picks. They get tons of picks. Byard's got 6 interceptions. Tremaine Edmonds has got 4. Nahshon Wright leads the NFL in takeaways on the season. Another guy that comes up, he comes up with his 9th takeaway, right? He comes up with the fumble on the Packers. I want to say he rips the ball out of the hands, and he comes up with his 9th takeaway overall of the season. That leads the league. Certainly an interesting question of what the Bears are going to do in the offseason with Nahshon Wright. Do they sign him, give him an extension? But the most critical stat, even from turnover differential, the Bears being plus 25 compared to San Francisco there, that's a key part of this. But it's the sacks. Neither team gets to the quarterback all that much. So if there is a team that can get to the quarterback better in this one, that's an advantage. If a team can take the football away, those are two parts of this game where it starts to really simplify things. That line of scrimmage. You're a team that's playing at home. If you can control the line of scrimmage, control the football, and run it successfully and not turn it over, San Francisco's got a very clear path to victory. And Chicago, if you win the turnover battle, you get 3-4 sacks on the day. Your quarterback he doesn't have to be great. That's what's unbelievable, is Caleb does not have to be great for the Bears to win. In big moments at the end, he has to be great. But overall, a 246-yard day, completing 53% of his passes and throwing for 1 or 2 touchdowns is good enough for the Chicago Bear team to win, because they're second in the league in rushing yards currently. Let's throw it back to 2012. The Chicago Bears were 7-2 playing the San Francisco 49ers, and Jay Cutler was out of that game with a concussion. Colin Kaepernick, the starting quarterback for San Francisco, he was phenomenal. They wind up blowing the Bears out on a Monday night in man, was that one at the old stadium? It must have been before Levi. I actually don't know the venue. Can't remember that part. I think Levi came a little bit later in when it was introduced right to the league. But Bears get blown out on a Monday night, and Chicago's then 7-3 the next week. They beat Minnesota and then go on to lose their next 3 games. They finished this season 10-6 overall, missing the postseason. That was the best defense in the league that year, like 10 defensive touchdowns. Charles Tillman, I think he had 10 forced fumbles overall on the season. That was something like an NFL record, 10 or 11 overall. And that team didn't make the postseason. A lot to do with a loss on a Monday night. In the year 2014, that was a Sunday night game. That one, I feel like that one was at Levi. I'm trying to fully trace. I apologize, I don't have that correct when Levi opened up. But Sunday night game, the Niners jumped out to like a 20-0 lead, and they wound up blowing it. I think Brandon Marshall had 2 touchdowns, and Chicago's rookie Kyle Fuller came away with an interception in the fourth quarter. Bears wound up winning by a margin of about 8 points. They'd lost the previous week to Buffalo in overtime in week 1 and wound up winning that game to win. That was a pretty horrible season for them overall, but that was another really fun, famous matchup, that one going down to the wire between a couple of big teams. That was the last time they played on Sunday night. I mentioned the matchup that they had on what was that? So yeah, Monday night a couple of years earlier. So the league has liked putting this team in prime time about every other game that they've played. That 1989 champ game with the wind chills and the frigid temperatures. They played, I believe, in 84. The Niners won like 23-0 in that champ game. That was the year before Chicago went on. That was Mike Ditka sort of saying, like, it's going to give me 3 years. That was the year before Chicago went on to win the Super Bowl. The domination of those two teams, through the 80s, and great defenses and the quarterback play of Montana. And I think the Bears fans had a little bit of an envious nature towards San Francisco and looked at their quarterbacks and said, oh my goodness, like what they can do. Imagine if we had a piece of that with as good of our defenses are. Because you could always run the ball. They always played good defense, and the Niners had those offenses, and it's something that they've just always done well. It's amazing that level that they maintained. There's the whole Harbaugh era where they make a run to the Super Bowl and they get beats by the Ravens and his brother, and then the NFC Championship game, going to Crabtree, the Richard Sherman play, NFC Championship. They had some really good teams with San Francisco and always had those good offenses, and the Bears did not. They had a quarterback that turned the ball over too much. Now, it would be a very interesting discussion of who each team would rather have at quarterback. I think both squads would take their own guy, that they love who their current quarterback is, and they wouldn't trade either one. The playing field is obviously going towards the more experienced guy in Brock, who's played in a Super Bowl, an NFC Championship game. He can lean on that experience. And then there's the wild card, though, with Caleb, that his talent and his arm and the weapons that are around him, and the fact that he is a wild card in the playoffs, I have no idea what that'll look like. I can base off this season, he might be completing somewhere around 58% of his passes in a postseason game. And that if it comes down late fourth quarter, he's probably going to come up clutch in a big moment. But the overall nature, I think I have an idea what Brock will do. Caleb, if they go into the postseason, is he the number 6 quarterback in the playoffs behind Darnold or Stafford or Purdy or Jalen Hurts? Maybe in front of Bryce Young, but is he behind Baker if they get in? Or is Caleb Williams number 2 or 3 potentially? And this is a guy that at the biggest level, at the highest stage, when the pressure is the greatest, he can deliver. I think it's a fascinating answer that we're going to get from him. The Bears have won a playoff game since 2010. The 49ers have been looking to get that Super Bowl victory. They've come oh so close several times, and they've got some famous wins over Green Bay. They've got, I want to say, 4 playoff wins in the last 15 years over the Packers. They beat them in that game at Lambeau. Robbie Gould game-winning field goal as the snow's coming down. The win in the NFC Championship game in 2019, running the ball through their face. There's the divisional round win. Jordan Love's divisional round interception, and the Niners wind up kicking them. So, look, the Bears fans have enjoyed watching the San Francisco 49ers for a long time. And it's been a bit of a rivalry, not necessarily one that's hatred. It's been a decent amount of respect for their opponent, and there's a lot of respect for the history, the tradition between these two teams, and the way that they go back to older stadiums, and very passionate fan bases that travel exceptionally well. The Niners travel everywhere, especially down to Levi South at SoFi. Bears fans, they'll be stocked into this one, traveling out west to Levi Stadium. There's going to be tons of them. This ticket has become the best game of the week in Week 17. And 2 11-4 teams, and you get this one and with these stakes on the line. I think the cheapest ticket right now for this game is like $350 price of admission, and you're getting yourself a bargain seeing this quality of team. Either of these teams could, without a doubt, be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, 60 minutes away from hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. You could see it for either of them, and that's because of the strengths of what they do well. There's a formula, and that formula in the playoffs is playing good defense and running the football, not turning it over. When you need your quarterback to make a throw, he can make a throw. In each of these teams, they check those boxes. The one unknown with Caleb I just mentioned, but then there's the takeaways. It's been doubted. It's been saying it's random. It's not repeatable. You can't rely on that. And yet, every week, the Bears are able to come up with a big takeaway. In each of these wins, they can come up with a really important interception that you could point to that is some sort of a catalyst for them winning a game. The lean initially in this one, -3 for San Francisco, that feels pretty dang close. Like, that feels right around where this one is. More than 3 points for either team. If the Bears are down 10, it feels like that there's comeback potential to make this a tight game later. San Francisco with the football, let's say they're down by 11 with 4 minutes left, that they could put a drive together and then be a stop away from getting the ball back with a chance to tie, or playing to win the game with the final possession. Like, either way, no matter what the score is late in this fourth quarter, it's must-see television in the way that it goes down. It's a game that Tirico and Collinsworth will have a ton of fun calling. Let's look at the defense and specifically the secondary. Kyler Gordon, nickel for Chicago, the injured Bear. He won't be back unless they get probably a first-round bye. Divisional round seems to be where he could be back. But the filling in of C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that's been crucial for the Bears and him playing well. Coverage ability, up and down at times, gets beat, I want to say, in coverage for that touchdown down the left sideline. And then for them, Jalen Johnson hasn't been 100%. And then Tyreek Stevenson, who was a starting corner coming into the year, he's been on the bench for Deshaun Wright, and that's been well-deserved. For the Niners, Mustafa, Diamador Lenore, Upton Stout, like, they've got a core of players that are unfamiliar to many people, and they're not household names. The household names are not playing. They're watching this one from the press box, and Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, they're not on the field. And without that lack of a pass rush, you find yourself looking at this one And it's almost like there's the sole question: can the Bears stop the Niners offense and limit them to less than 24 points? If they can limit them to 23, to 19, to 20, it feels like the Niners with Renardo Green, Tatum Bethune, like they don't have the capabilities to go out here and get 2 to 3 takeaways and to fully control the game from the get-go. Again, Ben Johnson's going to put an emphasis on starting fast, getting a quick start, unlike last week where the opportunity was there and they couldn't do it. And against Pittsburgh, not the start that they fully wanted in that game, and being down 4 points at halftime. The Giants game, there's the game against the Saints where they're up 20-0, a great start, but then in the middle 8. So the complete games that they've had, there's 2 against Cleveland and against Philadelphia. They're looking to try and put together another complete game. Now, a complete game doesn't have to be a blowout win. It certainly helps, but it looks like a lack of penalties, no pre-snaps, clean, completion-driven football, blocking really well, gap integrity on defense. And this goes both ways for San Francisco, because this is important, if not more for them than the Bears, is staying in your lane and being sound. Because this Ben Johnson offense and Declan Doyle as their coordinator and the way that they work, and he's going to be a hot topic name in a couple of seasons for a future head coach for somebody at the age of like 32 years old, like Sean McVay. This offense is built to run the ball and make you make a mistake. Swift Monangai might not be getting all-pro praise or being talked about as top 10 backs, but the combination, they're lethal. And they can equate to the production of running the ball that Christian McCaffrey does, catching the ball, run and catch. He's unbelievable. He's a challenge. Tremaine Edmonds got made to look silly against Malik Willis, who played very well on Saturday night. It's going to be a mismatch. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds trying to track down, trying to cover Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. Like, good luck, guys. It's just it's a very tough ask. So Dennis Allen, look for him to be aggressive, but also know, like, Christian McCaffrey one-on-one with one of these running backs, that's a recipe for disaster. 3rd and 9, and McCaffrey's singled up with the back. Let's throw the football that direction, even if it's one-on-one open space and it's not beyond or towards the sticks. Like, McCaffrey's the guy that can make somebody miss and go out and get that first down. Without George Kittle at 100%, that becomes a major disadvantage for them. He was amazing through 3 quarters on Monday night against Indianapolis. Juwan Jennings, really good. The production that they've had this season in the wide receiving core from Kendrick Bourne, it's been excellent. But McCaffrey, he's your wide receiver 1. That's their offense. And can't help but think that the Bears try and make Brock Purdy beat them. A lot of single high Kevin Byard roaming around in the back end. Jaquan Brisker underneath helping Edwards or Edmonds to be singled up and make plays. He could be matched up, him or CJ Gardner-Johnson on Kittle if he is on the field, or if there is McCaffrey, having 2 guys down low in essence having a 1 high look and something like 5 or 6 guys in that first level of the defense, right? They call it 2 deep, 5 under for a cover 2 look. You could be seeing 1 deep, 6 under this week, and trying to really keep it in front of them. That isn't like a full coverage, because you can just beat that with verticals down the field. So you do turn that into man. So essentially what we're looking at is a variation of a bit of a match zone Chicago is going to implement in this one to make sure that they respect San Francisco and Shanahan to the point where it's like, all right, McCaffrey can't be stopped. We're smart enough to know that he can't be stopped one-on-one. So how do we scheme up a defense to make sure that he's not going to be the guy to beat us? Or if Kittle's on the field, it's not Kittle. To make that read go to somebody else outside the numbers where the throws are tougher for Purdy, because Purdy's a good thrower of the football, layering those throws over the middle, timing, anticipation. He's got excellent footwork. I would make an argument he's a top 5 guy with anticipatory throws, ball out on time, it's in the right spot. Now, is the ball coming out with the pace of someone like Stafford or Caleb or Jared Goff? No, there's no question about it. He'll never be someone like Josh Allen throwing the football. But what he can be is someone that's an elite level, even above some of these guys, with the way that he can process, and having one of the best coaches in football, because don't be a fool. Shanahan is one of the best 5 coaches in the league, in just essentially having one of those first or second reads in the progression be open. So that matchup, in that regard, the Bears defense against the Niners offense, that's fascinating. I think we're going to see a low 20 scoring game, that we're going to see defense played well on both sides, an offensive explosion like Monday night going both ways. It's tough to see the Bears scoring more than 30 on this Niner defense, or it's tough also to see the Niners doing that on Chicago with how many takeaways that they get, with how well they've been playing now in the red zone, getting stops. Green Bay turned away 5 times in the red zone. What a feat from the Bears to pull that one off. 3 field goals, a fumble inside the 5, and a turnover on downs. Like, that's phenomenal stuff here. And going towards the end of the season, that's something that you can't be doing at a better and a higher level. So the addition of Brian Robinson in the backfield does help, but I'd be shocked if Christian McCaffrey doesn't touch the football 30 times. And you simply say, all right, Chicago, do you take away number 1 McCaffrey? If you can't, we're gonna spam him like the X button on the Xbox controller the entire day. He's gonna keep getting the football. Or I guess it's RB for running backs in the Madden game. And then for the Bears, I don't know. Is it Colston Loveland? Is it more Odunze or Burden are back on the field? That's a huge addition. Which one of them goes off? Swift Monangai, there's 8-9 different guys that could be stars of this show. Probably the unsung MVP of this team are probably sung about enough now in Chicagoland has been Joe Thuney. 2 Super Bowls with the Patriots, 2 with the Chiefs, and now with Chicago, all-pro level guard. Drew Dalman's been excellent at center. And Jonah Jackson from the Rams, he comes over. He's played well. Darnell Wright earning every cent of that contract extension that he's going to get. They traded back with the Eagles and didn't want Jalen Carter because of character issues. And they took Wright, and that was made fun of, laughed at. And now I don't think anyone's laughing. I think it was a good deal for both teams. Both guys made out with superstar level players at both positions. You know, that left side of the Bears offensive line is looking pretty good. Ozzie Trapillo, this kid stepping up, 2nd rounder. Monangai, Burden, Loveland, Trapillo. This rookie class, it's been excellent. And for the Niners, unfortunately, the injury to Mykel Williams, those types of things are important. The overall prediction I'm going to come up with here is Chicago, 24-23. They get the win on the road. I feel like it's going to be close late, and that is an edge towards them. They have that balance. It feels like the Niners can be one-dimensional if you take away McCaffrey from an impact. Like, they have that answer to Kittle, but now that Kittle's banged up, if he's not 100, like, where do you go? That there's been answers. I get that. I fully understand. But it feels like that's a critical part of this team. And now an injury that, as I'm making this preview prediction video after watching a Monday and him go down and not know the severity, picking the Niners would be very tough. Very tough to make that decision. You know, that left side, Trent Williams against the young player in Booker. Good luck for Booker. You know, Montez Sweat will have his matchups on the right side of that line. But where my eyes are going is towards the middle, as we talked about here. At the end of the day, it's the one probably comes down to a game-winning field goal. Bears down by 2. They get the ball back with 1 minute and 7 seconds. And I think they take it down the field, kick like a 47-yard game winner on Sunday night to put themselves in maybe a game away from the number 1 seed in the postseason. In San Francisco, as we know, they pull out this win, they are themselves a game away from that number 1 spot in the postseason on the NFC side. The history of this matchup is near and dear to me. I've got a lot of family in the Midwest. I know a bunch of Niner fans, Bears fans alike, very proud fan bases, knowledgeable fans that know their football well. And so I felt a little bit lucky about like not having to go deep into the weeds to remember these games, because I've watched them in their entirety, and I wasn't around in 1989. Probably bet that I'm not 50 right now. I've got a lot of fans that are in their 50s. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this video, haven't subscribed, please go do that. Go ahead. Feel free to subscribe for more content in the future. Hope you enjoyed this, but it's incredible. I think that both these fan bases enjoy the rest of the year. You never know at what point the season will end or when you'll be back. It's such a strange thing with the league and the way that injuries happen and how things go. For San Francisco, they felt like last year they had the team to get back there. And this year they were there and they have the injuries and they're written off. And yet still here they are fighting for 1 seed. For Chicago, 2018 and that run, they felt like 2019, the 100th season, that they'd be hoisting Lombardi Trophy in week 1. They just didn't have the horses to be able to pull it off. And they haven't had a playoff win since 2010. After the NFC Championship game, it felt like Chicago in 2011, 12, 13 had a good enough team to be back. And they didn't get themselves in the postseason. They were 7-3 in 2011, 7-1 in 2012, missed the playoffs both years. 2013, 8-6. They had a Sunday night game against the Eagles. They lost. And then Green Bay the next week to miss the postseason. In this case, they've already clinched, so it's not like, oh man, is there a shade of similarity? Like they got to win this game, but if they lose, then it comes down to the last week against Detroit, so that's not a possibility here. I just got to say, thank you so much for watching this. Happy holidays. Oh, no matter which team you're a fan of, whether you're not a fan of either of these two teams, enjoy the game. Enjoy the rest of the football season. It's the best time of year. If you're watching this before Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate, Happy Hanukkah, and then that holiday recently, Happy Hanukkah to you. Happy New Year as that comes up upon us in a new year. There's going to be lots of football. College football playoff is here. If you're a big college fan, Ohio State, Miami in the Cotton Bowl. Georgia, Ole Miss. Got that one. Tech, Oregon went through the 4 quarterfinal games. We're going to be covering the semis and the Natty, as well as the NFL playoffs towards the end of the year. So if you haven't already, subscribe to Blitz of Blender. Once again, I'm Josh Blender, making this content every week, getting you set and ready for these games. I can't believe both these two teams are here. We've got the game of the year maybe in week 17. It's going to be a blast. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.